All right, welcome everyone. So we're gonna get started with some calculator things. Uh, this is gonna be things that aren't necessarily required. For example, how to use a matrix, how to use matrices to help solve systems. That's a good multiple choice tool or checking tool for a written question. Reg. Again, not something that's like explicitly required, but Reg helps you create an equation of a line. Very useful tool, particularly like that table question we've been seeing. And then the intersect feature. This one, I guess, is kind of required if you know what I'm talking about, like the quizzes. Sometimes lines intersect at a decimal. So I'm saying it's kind of required. I guess technically you could do a question without it, but it'd be very, very difficult. So the intersect one here is perhaps the most important, but these are all useful strategies for our systems test. So let me stop sharing my iPad and let's open up our calculator. You guys can take yours out if you want to follow along with me. If you don't have one, that's fine. You could just watch. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, calculator. I figured something out. You know, the screen is kind of hard to see in class. I figured out a way to make it larger, but it like puts it off to the side. Okay, can someone type in the chat or let me know? Can you see the calculator emulator? Because I'm going to be looking at that. You can see it? Okay, cool. So let's start with intersect. If you just came in, we're going over like calculator stuff to start. The intersect feature is going to be found when you're graphing two lines. This would be used for like the questions that say like, one, I guess if you want to check maybe a written question that you've graphed and you just want to verify, but like the multiple choice, like, hey, where do these two lines intersect? And you notice all the choices are decimals, or it even gives it away in the question, like, oh, we rounded this, so what's the intersection to the nearest hundredth or something? So I'm more or less going to make one up. So let's hope these do intersect somewhere nice. Let's say 4x plus 7. The only scrap work you would have to do for this is perhaps get them in y equals form. Like I think on the quizzes, they weren't in y equals form. So you had to do that first. So obviously, I'm just making these up, so they are. And then this is going to be ugh, um, negative 2x plus 9. Let me see something. Okay. So again, I just typed these in. I'm just making these up. So you could hit graph and you could see it. That doesn't really help you. You'll like kind of guesstimate where it is. Where we really want to go is second trace. Second trace, you'll see a screen like this, and then it's very obvious. It's hard to kind of get lost here. You see 5. You could hit the 5 button. Some of you guys don't know that, I think. When you have like a window or a menu, you could use, that's why they have numbers. You could just hit the number. Or if you want to scroll, that's fine. So you could hit 5. It's going to ask you 3 questions. It's going to say first curve, second curve, guess. For right now, it doesn't matter. So just hit enter 3 times. If you're curious why I'm saying, so the answer here would be 0.3 and 8.3. Um, if you're curious why I'm saying it doesn't matter now, basically that first curve, second curve stuff is like your calculator wants to know, hey, what intersection are you talking about? So right now we only have one, but we'll do systems eventually later on in the year where there could be 2 solutions and we want to maybe be like, oh, this one over here versus that one over there. So for right now, we could just hit enter, enter, enter. There will be a time later on where we maybe actually have to do something there. It's basically like, hey, what intersection are you talking about? Okay, that's the intersect feature. That's the intersect feature. Um, if we're trying to come up with, I think the one that people struggle with the most on the review sheet, which let me pull that out so I could use that as an example, is how to come up with the equation. The Lin-Reg stuff we like totally ghosted on. So you had a table of values, and we've identified the problem with these table questions. Like you need the equation that it's talking about. So I'm going to use that one as a reference here. To do this, you're going to hit stat and then enter for edit. And if you remember, we kind of use L1 and L2 like as an XY window, and you only need to type in 2 points. A line is defined by 2 points, so you only need two. So this is like the one from the review sheet, -5, -2, and the values were -18.4 and -12.4. Okay. Where do you go from here? You're gonna hit stat a second time, scroll to the right. We could hit choice 4 for lin reg. Hit 4 for lin reg, enter, 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 and this will give you the equation. Now, once you have the equation for these table questions, like you saw on the quizzes or the review sheet, you know y equals 2x minus 8.4. Now you could do like substitution, elimination, whatever you want to do. Okay? Questions with lin reg or intersect, because next we'll talk about matrices. That's the most involved. Stat edit table again. I was using the review sheet example. Stat edit. You only need 2 rows there, 2 rows. If you sit and type the whole table, or is it going to be more exact or better or something? No. A line is defined by 2 points, so you just wasted time. Not that it's a bad thing, but you only needed two. How do you reset a calculator? Mine's not working properly. Okay, so if that's happening, Ethan asked, I'll show you how to reset it. But just make sure, guys, you're turning, if you're using, obviously he's talking about his personal calculator. Um, just make sure you turn your calculators off, because what I noticed some people do is, and put the case on, they'll leave it on and then you put in your backpack and it jumps around all random weird settings. Also put the case on it, because you might turn it off and then, pushing on your backpack, you hit a button and it turns on. But how you reset it manually, you hit second plus sign. You could just stab the little thing on the back. But second plus sign and then 7 and then all and then enter and then like reset. Second plus sign. It's pretty easy to find from there. Second plus sign, or just stab the back. Okay, let's go over matrices. Matrices. I did post a video on this, and I know both classes we spent like a half a period talking about it, quarter of a period maybe. So I'm going to use something on the review sheet. So let's look at number something. Let's look at number 2 from the review sheet. I know it said algebraically, but let's say let's pretend it was like a multiple choice, or maybe like we did it and we want to check that we did it correctly. Let's pretend. Okay. So, okay. So the review sheet number 2 I'm looking at was the one that says like 9x. Does everyone have that one? Yes. Um, so what you want to do first for matrices is make sure that it's lined up. So you would still need to do those first few moves. The first move is making sure that 13x and 5y switch places, and also that like you move that y over. So what I'm looking at is the one, it's like 9x plus 19y equals 97. And then your second equation was 13x plus 5y equals -17. So to use matrices, you still have to like make sure they're lined up, just like if you were about to start elimination. Just like if you were about to start elimination. That's important. All right. So for matrices, we're going to, I have way too many things open. We're going to hit second x to the negative first. Now, depending if you were using your personal calculator in class when we went over this, you might see something like different there. If you've just reset your calculator or you didn't do this with us in class, it should look like this. If it says like 2 by 3, you maybe still have it, and that's fine. What we want to do is go to the right for edit and hit enter. Now, if you get a calculator tomorrow, I usually reset them, and have my monitors help me out with that. So odds are it's going to look like this tomorrow. You want to make it. Does anyone remember what are the dimensions we want to make it? 2 by 3, good. Hit 2, hit 3. Not 23, but 2 by 3. Basically like a 2 by 3 box. Hit enter. Okay. Now, what we're typing in here, you can kind of see it like, oh, okay, I know why it's 2 by 3. We had two equations and three parts. We had like x, if you're looking vertically, we had x, we had y, and then we had like equal sign, equal sign. The answer, let's call it, the number. So again, I'm using number 2 on the review sheet. So the numbers were, for the top line, 9, 19, and 97. So 9, 19, and 97. Okay. The second equation was 13. If you hit enter, it just kind of moves you to the next cell. 13, 5, and negative 17. Yes, we don't include any variables, any equal sign, but negatives do count. Also, if it says subtract, we treat that as a negative. So I want to make sure to put negative 17 here. If it said subtract with something, like if it said subtract 5y, you would put negative 5 in that box as well. Okay, we're good up to here. Now, so we know the answer to this ahead of time. The answer was negative 4, 7. So let's see if we end up getting it. Now what we would want to do is quit. We want to get out of here. So we're going to hit second mode and we're going to go back in. You quit to get out of like the creation screen. Now we'll go back in. Under math, it's option B, or you could just go up to it. It's the RREF. That stands for reduced row echelon form. You don't need to know that. Okay, select it. Now it's like, hey, what do you want to calculate this for? Like, okay, which matrix? So we have to go in one more time. You should only have one in here. It's not like you're going to start a catalog of matrices. Matrix A, like, hey, can you do this for matrix A? And when you click enter, it's important you understand this. What it's saying is 1x is worth negative 4 and 1y is worth 7. If it's like a word problem, it would be like the order that you typed them in. If it was like students and adults, let's say, if you put students first, then that would mean one student. I guess this wouldn't make sense, negative 4, but you know what I mean? Like it depends the order that you type them in. Obviously, we did X, Y, so that top line is telling me 1x. If you're doing a word problem, just pay attention to like which one you put in the first column. Basically, your calculator is doing, if you're like, what is this? What is RREF? Your calculator is doing elimination with numbers. Questions with matrices. Again, not something you need to use, but very, very useful for multiple choice. People that know how to do this for multiple choice are going to get through it a lot faster. I'll say that. Even if you're comfortable with elimination, I was explaining it and it still only took what, like 2 minutes. Versus like elimination for a really ugly one too could take you some time. Does this only work for equations that both have a plus sign? No. If they're negative, you just put in a negative. Other questions with that? We switch back to my iPad in a moment. So any other calculator questions before I X out of this? Henrik, just type in one line for me, okay? Okay. Calculator stuff we're good. If you still have an issue with the calculator, my recommendation would be there's a material item posted on Google Classroom. It says YouTube videos. I posted 3 of them for these topics. Okay. So I'm going to get out of my iPad. You don't have to use it, Alyssa. No, you don't have to use it. I know, Henrik, it was the other way. It was X, Y, but it doesn't matter. Whatever, however you type it in, you just want to make sure that it's lined up. Okay, calculator's done. Let's go back to the iPad. Da, 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 da. Mm, mm, mm. Mhm. Okay, we're cool. Which class has more people here? That class gets a bonus point. Let's see. It's about even. Um, okay. Can we go over question 5? Yeah, that was gonna be my next thing. I have the review sheet. I can kind of make one up, but that's a little difficult to do on the fly. Um, but yeah, if you want me to explain something further. So Ethan said number 5 on the review sheet. I have the quizzes as well if you want to talk about that. I know both classes we kind of rushed through the quizzes a little bit. Question 5. Okay. So yeah, we this one was on both the review sheet and the quizzes. So see if you could play connect the dots there if you're gonna see it tomorrow or not. Um, we want to do the lin reg with this one. That's why we're going over lin reg. We want to come up with the equation that's featured in the table. So we do lin reg for the table. We get that the box, the red box. When you do lin reg, you get 2x minus 8.4. Once you have an equation, if you follow that long arrow, I was doing substitution. Like basically, once you have two equations, you could solve it like any other system. I did substitution because it already says y equals, so I plugged it in. I'm doing some equation solving there, so combining like terms. I distributed first. You get x is 6, and then I plug in to get y. So the moral of the story, the first thing is the most important step, coming up with the equation, which is that red work. That's the lin reg stuff. Rama, do you need a calculator to solve it? You could come up with the equation by hand, so it's certainly not impossible. By hand, it would look like this. You would need to figure out the slope. We talk about time and stuff like that, right? So not crazy. This is just plus 6, right? Yeah, the slope works out nicely. It's the y-intercept that's going to be a little annoying. So the slope would be 6 over 3 or 2, and then you would like plug in one of the points to find b. We did that lesson, like how to write an equation by hand. It's just going to take you a little bit more time. The reason why I'm saying lin reg is to save time. Tage, yeah, it has to be in standard form. So like x, y number, x, y number. Um, other questions with the review or quizzes? Review or quizzes? Yes, Henrik. Has to be in standard. I think I have that on the quizzes. Let me see. Yeah, so I had like a picture. What was this one? The ice cream one. And this is a good example, like a multiple choice. Some of you guys said like, "Oh, I guessed my way through this." Like I kind of was just going through each choice. Again, not a horrible strategy, just might take you a good amount of time. This was a little gonna be a little bit faster, or you could set it up and solve it algebraically. It's gonna take you the most amount of time. So try to conserve your time. That's what I think that I'd like to think that we're all comfortable with the material, but we want to make sure that we're working efficiently tomorrow, right? If question 4 on the multiple choice here takes me 8 minutes to do, and there's a bunch of other questions, then I'm gonna run into a little bit of a problem, right? So we want to make sure we're working efficiently. You might know how to do it. You don't have to go overboard and do it and check it again. We want to make sure we get through everything. So efficiency, efficiency. Can you review ratio and age? Ratio and age. Yeah. Let's do a ratio on that. I have one. I have a ratio in my back pocket. Okay. Let's do a ratio. I have a ratio somewhere. I have a ratio somewhere. Okay. So, ugh, um, let's say uh, this one involves what I'm not gonna like write out the word problem. I'll kind of put the bullet points here. The variables are waffles and pancakes. Waffles are better than pancakes. Um, and it says uh, the amount of waffles that Leslie has is 5 less than 3 times the number of pancakes. Okay. If she were to add 2 more of each, So if she were to add 2 more of each, pancakes and waffles is talking about, add 2 more of each, the ratio would be the ratio of pancakes to waffles would be 2 to 5. So I'm writing this in shorthand. Let me just do that and then I'll explain it. Okay, that's the problem. And we want to set up an equation, a system, and then we want to algebraically solve it. Okay, so we're dealing with waffles and pancakes. We'll use W and P. Sentence one tells us, hey, the amount of waffles is 5 less than 3 times the number of pancakes. And the second sentence tells us if you were to add 2 more waffles and 2 more pancakes, the ratio of pancakes to waffles would be 2 to 5. Okay, so let's start with the second bullet point here. Sorry, I missed out on the chat for a second. Caitlin, will there be an answer sheet again, like on the quest? No. There's an answer sheet for your multiple choice, but for your written questions, you could just do on the test paper. There's not like a thing this time. Okay. I should have, yeah. I don't know if you guys like that or not, but it made grading a lot faster. Okay. So let's translate this sentence using W and P. The amount of waffles is, how would you translate 5 less than 3 times the number of pancakes? How would you translate that? 3p minus 5. Good. When we see subtraction or talk of subtraction, we switch the order there. So less than, we're going to do minus 5 on the end. Yes, yeah, 3p. Okay. Now this is the tricky one. So what I recommended for the ratio, if you guys remember, what I recommend is just starting with the blank proportion, a fraction and a fraction. Okay? Start there. Now the 2/5 is going to be like, it doesn't matter the left or right. 2/5 is going to be one of those fractions. So that's easy. We're halfway there. Okay? It's important the order here. The order is saying that like this isn't like a variable in the problem. I'm just putting it there as a reminder like, hey, reference to pancakes is up top, reference to waffles is on the bottom. Can anyone tell me what fraction would go on the left? What fraction would go on the left? Josh says P plus 2 and W plus 2. Good, perfect. There's usually like a weird element to this, like, oh, if they were to do this, if they were, I think we did one with like dog toys or something, or cats and dogs. So if they were to add 2 more of each, I think one we did in class, it was just like 2 more pancakes, but this one says 2 more of each. So P plus 2, P's in the numerator, and W plus 2, W's in the denominator. If we flip this around, if this was the other way, we would flip our fraction around. So that does matter. And now how would you solve this? So what you can do, I would first maybe like, we don't really like it like that, so you could cross multiply. You get 5p plus 10 and 2w plus 4. That's cross multiplying and distributing. I'm kind of skipping a step. And now, yeah, I would substitute in w exactly, Ethan. So I would replace w with 3p minus 5, use parentheses. So w becomes 3p minus 5. And don't forget the plus 4. And now we could solve. Let's see. We'll get 6p minus 10 plus 4 is going to be minus 6. I would bring the 5p to the right to get just p. Bring the 6 over. There were 16 pancakes. 16 pancakes. If we want the amount of waffles as well, we go back to the top. 3 times 16 is going to be 48. Minus 5 will be 43. Be careful with word problems. Like we talked about this a while ago. Like you can't do that. Okay. I know what you're trying to do. But we can only write things in coordinate form if it's X and Y. Yeah, if you're using like P and W, you can't really do that. It's okay if it's a word problem and you're using X and Y, but just be careful like overusing that. Yeah, there's no like, oh, it's an alphabetical order and P comes before W. No, that's just for X and Y. Age problems were okay. I don't, ratio problems, this was okay. I don't have an age one, so let's look at the one on the review sheet. Those are kind of annoying to come up with, so we'll just go over the one on the review sheet to talk about it. Age problems. You guys are not in seventh grade math. That was like the one with Eric and Gloria. So the number one mistake with this is people forgetting. Let me change that to something you could see. People forgetting the parentheses here. People forgetting the parentheses. When it's talking about the past, or if it said like the future, you would be adding 4 years. But in this case, it's talking about the past. We want to put parentheses. 4 years ago, Gloria was G minus 4 years old. So I want that quantity to be calculated first, then multiplied by 5. If you drop the parentheses, you're multiplying her current age by 5 and then subtracting 4 from it, which is something totally different. Age problems are usually solved best through substitution because just like the ratio one, you have something by itself. Uh, and this part B, let's talk about. I was talking to 723 about this today. I know I didn't see you guys in 722. Technically, it didn't say for part B, like, I don't know if I explained this to you guys well enough in 722 on Monday. Like, you could have just solved this by looking at it. If you sat there, I think we said today, like, some people were like, oh, I just kind of guessed and I played around with it and I got 23. Like, technically, that's fine. Notice in the instructions, it doesn't say like set up the system, solve it, do it algebraically. I'm showing you in purple how to model it, but you can, if that's super confusing to you, you can figure it out other ways. So what I'm doing here in purple is saying like, all right, I know their ages now. So you had to figure that out first. You couldn't like skip to B and then do A. I know their ages. So in the future, he'll be 49 plus X. She'll be 13 plus X. Like, I don't know how many years it is in the future. And then there's a 2-to-1 relationship now. There's double. He's going to be double her age. That will happen when he's 72 and she's 36, which is in 23 years. Um, how do you know which one to do? So, Alyssa, you can choose, like, for example, let's say this one. This was number 3 on the review sheet. This is a good example where you can choose. So if I say, Alyssa, solve this algebraically, if you like elimination more, you could do that. If you like substitution more, you could do that. Why am I saying that? Because this one's in the middle. They're variables that are close to being by themselves, and it's also in standard form. It works out kind of nicely for elimination. So this is a good example of like choose what you're more comfortable with. I still don't get the 4 years ago. Okay, so we could try another one of those. I might have to make one up on the spot. Um, does that make sense, Alyssa? So yeah, you could choose there. What do you guys mean with you don't get the concept? Like why we're subtracting 4 or while you're writing that, what did I want to say? This would be an example of something where like I wouldn't want to do substitution. Even if you really like substitution, Alyssa, like no one's gonna want to do it for this. So this is like a classic elimination one. Oh, why did we subtract 4 from both variables? Okay. Um, give me one moment. Let me see if I have the lesson where we first did age stuff. I think that was System Word Problems Part 1. Yeah, that was the one with like Bill and Peter. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Um, so I'm looking at one. It's you don't need to have it in front of you, but people are saying like they're a little confused with the variable. So I'll offer a little suggestion here. So this was the one you might remember it when I start talking about it, like Bill and Peter. Um, what can be helpful for problems like this? I just don't really. I think most people are okay with translating, but if you're having trouble, something you can do is like set up a table like this. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So this problem said, I'll reread it. I can't like pull it up right now, but it said Bill is 3 times as old as Peter. Bill is 3 times as old. And then it said 18 years from now, we did this problem again, you might recognize it. 18 years from now, Bill will be twice as old as Peter will be. And it said use B and P, set up and solve a system. Okay, great. So what we can do, there's 2 references in this problem. It talks about how old they are now. Let's call that their current ages. And then this one happens to talk about the future. Okay. So let's call that the future. So currently, Bill is B years old. Tells you to use B and P. Currently, Peter is P years old. How old will Bill be 18 years from now? How old will Bill be 18 years from now if he's B right now? Well, it's 18 years in the future. So like doing this like little mini table does help some people. So that's why I'm explaining it. If Bill is B years old right now in the 18 years, he'll be B plus 18. If you have trouble with that, think of an actual number. So like if Bill is 12, 18 years from now, he'll be 30, just adding 18 to that number. I know it's confusing because it's like a variable for their age, but that's what we're talking about. And Peter will also be P plus 18. Okay. And now this table just makes like the translating part a little bit easier. So currently, Bill, so for that sentence, I'm using this one. Currently, Bill is 3 times Peter's age. I think we're all good with like those translations. But this is the one we have trouble with. 18 years from now, Peter will be twice his age. So 18 years from now in this equation, I'm using this guy. So 18 years from now, Bill is not B anymore. I don't want to use just B, but I want to use his future representation of B plus 18. He'll be double Peter's age. So notice how I'm pulling like these now, right? Does that make more sense? Yeah. So if that's helpful, like make this little mini table. It's one of those things like it doesn't look like it helps that much, but it does. Obviously, if it's a past one, you would just write the word past and put like B minus 18 and P minus 18. All right. I do have to cut us off, guys, here. I have to run somewhere myself, but what I'd recommend a few closing notes before you leave. Don't just run out. There's a bunch of resources available. There's a video explanation of the review sheet. There's videos on some of the calculator topics. There's the review sheet solutions if you want to just look at the PDF, and there's the quizzes solution. I know Ethan, sorry I didn't get to your question, but the quizzes that we did today in class or yesterday for 722. I know it was on quizzes, not the best way of going over things math wise, but you could see like my handwriting and my work for some of these. Keep in mind the quizzes obviously would just be the multiple choice portion. It's not like you'll see a question like this as a written question. So there's written questions as a side. Those would be more so on the review sheet. These are like good multiple choice practice. Yeah, if you look over those things and prepare, you should be good to go. My number one concern would be time. I can't really help you out with time. I could help out, make sure you understand it, but if you're someone that, like I said, exaggerating, but like you spend 10 minutes on question one, that's going to be difficult. I don't like anyone to run out of time. Um, because then I feel like you're not really testing your abilities, but I want to make sure you get to everything. So choose your time, or use your time wisely. Choose your time wisely. Use your time wisely. Make sure you get to every question. Cut your losses sometimes. If you don't know how to do it, move on and then go back to it. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks for joining. I'm going to cut off the recording here, but have a great night and I'll see everyone tomorrow. Good luck.